So I'm in New Orleans on Main Street, and we are about to head into the Voodoo Museum, and I know nothing about voodoo. It's an interesting vibe you get when you walk into the shop. I'm interested in it, and part of me definitely is scared. I'll be honest, it's a little creepy, and I think that might just be the name. So I'm here in New Orleans at the Voodoo Museum with Jerry Gandolfo, who is the owner and historian at the museum. I would love to just have you tell me about voodoo.
Voodoo is an ambiguous word. For most people, it represents like a B-grade horror movie. In reality, it's a spiritual system that comes out of West Africa. And very simply, that's all voodoo is. It's a belief in spirits. New Orleans was founded in 1718. In 1719, the first slave ship arrived called the Aurora. It brought the fawn. Voodoo's been here since day one. It's part of the basic fabric of New Orleans.
I don't know as much about voodoo, and then when I was walking through the museum, I noticed that the saints and the spirits of voodoo were kind of, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Yeah.
Voodoo is called the Black Sister of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Voodoo is fully acknowledged and endorsed by the Vatican. On October 19, 1967, Pope Paul VI issued a document called the Africa Tyranum, whereby in which he acknowledged African traditional religion, which is voodoo, as a legitimate form of spirituality. Here in New Orleans, one of the places I go, I do a voodoo cemetery tour. One of the places I visit is the Catholic Church, because that's considered to be the main voodoo church in the city. They have statues in there. Saint Expedite is not recognized by the Vatican, but is known to be a voodoo saint. Marie Laveau, the famous voodoo queen, went to Mass every day. New Orleans is an overwhelmingly Catholic city. It simply is not a conflict to be both Catholic and voodoo. So
I had no idea.
Yeah, the two are virtually hand in glove. But the two are very parallel, and they are, even in Africa and here, very much together.
I think when people do think about voodoo, they sometimes think pins and needles and dolls and skulls and ritual. And can you tell me a little bit about what some of those things would be used for, or just kind of a general overview?
It's used for selling movies. No, I'm being dead honest. Hollywood created that. On Mardi Gras Day, they have secret societies that come out that are voodoo. First one that comes out is called the Skull and Bone Men. These are guys that dress like the Getty Spirit. They wear big papier-mâché skull heads and skeleton suits. They come out before dawn, and they become possessed by the Getty Spirit. Eventually, they go into a neighborhood by prearrangement where they leave the doors unlocked. They go in the houses, they let themselves in, they fumble around in the dark until they find the kids' bedrooms. They're also carrying recently slaughtered cattle bones that still have blood and meat and goo on them. And they go in the kids' bedrooms and they stand over the kids before they're awake, dripping the blood on them.
Huh.
And then as soon as the kids open, they do like that at them. And of course, it's intended to traumatize them. And then after they do that, they tell them, they consider it their job to scare the kids straight. So they tell them, stay in school, don't take drugs, do your homework, listen to your parents. If you join a gang, we're going to come back for you before it's your time and escort you to the cemetery. They come out on Mardi Gras Day because it's camouflage. Everyone else dressed up on Mardi Gras Day, they don't recognize them.
Oh, so it's a completely different...
It's done in plain sight, but no one sees it. That's because of the stigma. That's like jazz funerals. It's like the Catholic Church. All voodoo is very much here today, but you just don't key into it. You don't have to recognize it. But the point about the Skull and Bone Men is they do this at about noon. Then they stop. The reason they stop is another group comes out. This group is called the Baby Dolls. It's a female group. They wear baby bonnets, a baby bottle around their neck, which, albeit, is full of either rum or wine. But beyond that, they tend to be very adult. Sometimes they wear corsets and ruffle panties and high heels and stuff like that. They come out and they start sexually harassing both men and women. There's a method to their madness. Remember that Aida Wedo or St. Anne is a spirit of love, romance, and sexuality. Sexuality in voodoo represents the force of life. So it's their job to balance the Skull and Bone Men who represent death. That way the day is not left off balance to the negative. People even who are natives don't know it when they see it, because on Mardi Gras Day, there's people dressed up like space aliens and gorillas and everything else. So why focus on...
You don't even know what's going on.
Exactly. Unless you know.
Right.
Then when you know, it's blatant. Because you see the Skull and Bone Men, even after they made their rounds in the houses, they go out in the street and they look for more small kids to terrorize. And of course, the parents let them do it. because two reasons. One, it's happened to them when they were kids, so they know what's going on.
Yeah.
And number two is tradition, just like the Easter Bunny. You're constantly asking the spirits for help, because it's all about the spirits you interact with. And when it comes time to pay them back, if it's Hollywood, you're going to sacrifice something or someone. Mm-hmm. In reality, what you do is you sacrifice yourself.
Right.
But you do it through possession. Possession is not bad in voodoo. A voodoo spirit is not confined to time or to place. However, there's certain things that you as a mortal that you can do, specifically eat, drink, sing, dance, smoke, and have sexual relations. So you invite the spirit to possess you. Then after you're possessed, then you engage in those activities. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a quid pro quo. That's how you pay back the spirits.
That's the exchange.
Voodoo is specifically called the dancing religion. You invite possession by dancing to the point of ecstasy. The only catch is there's thousands of voodoo spirits, and you want to make sure that you get possessed by the right one. Voodoo is pre-language. That's beyond pre-literate. It means it doesn't communicate in words. Okay. It communicates in symbols, like hieroglyphics, mm-hmm. and it communicates in rhythms. So what's going on in a voodoo ceremony is the drummers know the spirit's rhythms, and by playing that spirit's rhythm, they call that spirit. Now that's the spirit you want to possess you. So now you dance to the point of ecstasy, and then the drummer calls the appropriate spirit. You now become possessed by that spirit, and then it may engage in any of those activities with you, and that's how you pay the spirit back in return. The spirit may have helped you in a love affair, may have helped you in a court case, a health issue. Some of the dances they used to do in Congo Square, which is a couple blocks from here, they used to do like the Yan Bambalo and the Chica. Mm-hmm. That became popular later as a cha-cha-cha. Yeah. They used to do the bambula. Mm-hmm. If you've ever seen the old reruns of I Love Lucy, mm-hmm. Desi Arnaz plays a drum. That's a bambula drum. And when he sings babalu, mm-hmm. that's the old Cuban word for a voodoo priest. The most popular dance there was a La Calinda. A La Calinda was the only dance that didn't use drums. And it was the most popular dance because it was a sexual dance. The way it would work is that people form a circle and they dance counterclockwise. And they dance only from the hips down in a very sexually suggestive manner. That being said, do you know what the West African word for sex is?
I do not.
I'll give you a hint. It's going to mess you up. It's a four-letter word. It's not that four-letter word. It's jazz.
Really?
Jazz comes from the Mandi language of West Africa, and it means sex. When the people would dance the voodoo ceremonies in Congo Square, they would say they were jazzing, and no one paid any attention to them. It wasn't until the late 19th century when New Orleans legalized prostitution. Mm-hmm. We had a place here called Storyville, the district. And in Storyville, they hired musicians to play in the parlors to entertain people. Mm-hmm. And they were innovating their own music style. What they were really doing was taking the rhythms from Congo Square and converting them from just drums and very basic percussions and things into horns and pianos and stuff. And when someone finally asked them, what is it? They said, well, you know, we're working in a bordello, so let's call it sex, let's call it jazz. Right. And then when Storyville closed in 1917, they were all out of work, and that's the beginning of the jazz era. We went all over the country and the world and spread jazz around. Wow. So jazz is something else that people don't realize it comes directly from voodoo.